So, Crow had stolen a nice, big, beautiful canoe off that silly giant. And he had spent all day paddling along, having a great time in that canoe. And he had made camp somewhere just further along shore, quite a strong distance from where the giant had made his camp. And he was paddling along the next day, having a good old time, but then he got to get a little bit bored. He needed a companion. He needed a companion to share in this adventure with him, to give it a bit more meaning. So, Crow decided to do this. He was going to sing a song, a spirit song, kind of like a shout out to all the other animals that may be in the region. And he sung this song across the waters, towards the shore, and it went a little something like this. Who wants to come on a canoe ride with me? I said, who wants to come on a canoe ride with me? Just drifting along, so fancy-free. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new ride for me, and I'm feeling good. And I'll have you know that Crow actually taught that song back in our time to a young lady called Nina Simone. Anyway, back to the story. Crow sang this song out over the water, see? And the first one to hear it on the shoreline, coming out of some trees, was Moose. And Moose said, hello, I'd like to come, because that's what Moose sounds like in this story, apparently. And Crow looked at Moose, looked him up and down and said, no, mate, what, you, with those pointy hooves that are basically designed to make a bloody hole in the bottom of my boat? No, mate, you're not coming. I would like someone else. So he's paddling along a bit more, and he's still singing his song. Who wants to come on a canoe ride with me? And the next animal to stick his little head up and shuffle onto the beach was Porcupine. And Porcupine said, yes, I would like a canoe ride. I've always wanted to come along in a nice canoe, because that's what Porcupine sounds like back in the myth time. And Crow looked him up and down and said, you've got to be joking. What, with your quills? What, you're going to poke me and poke holes in the side of my canoe? No, thank you very much, said Crow. He's still in human form, mind, at this time. Shapeshifters, tricksters, they all are. No, thank you very much, said Crow. And he paddled along a little bit further. And next, just bobbing along in the water, was Seal. And Seal just popped his little head up and said, could I come? Because that's what Seal sounds like. And Crow just looked at this nice, plump, fat little seal and said, yes, you're just the one I've been looking for. So Seal just heaved his big, fat, plump body over the side of that canoe, and Crow just hoisted him in and just gave just a nice little squeeze of his sort of flesh as he did so. And then Seal sat at the front of the boat, and Crow, still in human form, mind, was paddling along. Maybe his feet are still crow's claws, I don't know. Paddling along, maybe he's got a bit more beaky. Paddling along, and he's just eyeing up the back of Seal, and he's just licking his little crow lips, licking his beak, and thinking how he's going to eat this tasty, plump seal. So they're paddling all day, having a nice old time, and Seal, he's having so much fun. And Crow eventually gets to an island a little bit further along, and the sun's going down, and Crow says to Seal, I think we should find somewhere to make camp. And Seal says, yes, I think that's a very good idea. I'm getting very hungry. And Crow says, me too, Seal, me too. So they come ashore, and then Crow turns back into crow form from human form, and he flies inland and spies just the sort of space that he's been looking for, a place he remembered from a previous exploit. It was very dry, very barren, very little water at all, and he flies over it and thinks, perfect. And then he flies back to where he's left Seal on the shore and plops himself down, and then he goes, "Come with me, Seal, I've found just the place." And he sort of crowfoots his way in, and Seal sort of bobs his way afterwards. And eventually they come to this campfire place, and Crow lights a little fire with his magic, and Crow and Seal sit together. And Crow says, "What are we going to eat?" And Seal says, "I don't know." And Crow goes, "I've got a great idea. I'll tell you what, why don't I cut off one of my legs, roast it on the fire, and you can eat that? And then why don't you cut off one of your flippers, and then I'll roast that and eat that. It won't hurt." And Seal says, "I don't like that idea. No, it'll hurt too much." And Crow says, "No, it won't." And he got an axe and cut off Seal's flipper, and then he spat on the wound and just rubbed it over. And that wound healed right up. And then Crow cut off all of his own legs and put it on a stick and gave it to Seal, and he skewered Seal's flipper, and they both began to roast their bits of meat together. Now, after a while, Seal's flipper started to bubble and hiss, and the fat would just be dripping down it, and it just looked so delicious. But Crow's old claw, it was just starting to go all burnt, just like a burnt old bit of stick. And Seal was starting to think that he had got the raw end of the deal in this little arrangement, right? And he said this. He said, "Well, my flipper looks all nice and bubbly and delicious, and it's just brimming with fat, but your Crow's foot is all, hot, burnt and charcoaly." And Crow said, "No, it isn't. Hey, look, what's over there?" And Seal went, turned around, and then he just wiped a load of grease all over it. And then he says, "See? It's covered in lovely, lovely, nice, fatty grease." And that did make Seal feel a little bit better. And by the time Seal's flipper was ready, Crow just gulped the whole thing down, and it was delicious. "Meal fit for a chief," which is what Crow said. And Seal just started picking at the Crow's foot, and it tasted even worse than it looked, and all it did was make Seal very, very thirsty. And Seal said, "I'm very, very thirsty. All I could do with is a drink." And Crow said, "Oh, doesn't seem to be any water around here. Hang on, I saw a well earlier when I was flying over the island. Don't worry, my friend, you just wait here, keep yourself nice and warm by the fire. I'll come bring you a nice drink of water." And Seal liked that idea very much and said, "Yes, please." So Crow sort of walked out of camp, but he didn't go very far. He just sort of hid behind a bush, just sort of cocking his head, and watched that Seal get thirstier and thirstier and thirstier. And when he finally did leave, he went to a muddy hole in the ground, and he really took his time about it, and he caught a little cupful of water. And then when he finally returned back to camp, Seal was really, really parched and on the very verge of fainting. And Crow said, "Here, I've got water." And that fat little Seal just waddled over to Crow, and Crow dashed over to Seal, and then, oh no, just dropped it all over the dusty earth. And that Seal was just, he could barely hide his absolute dismay. And Crow, oh my goodness, he was so apologetic. "I'm so sorry, mate. I had no idea. Look, I'll go and get you another one." "No, please, I want to come too." "All right then, why don't you come along too? I'll show you where the water is." So Crow went and took a bit of a long way round, really tiring Seal out. So it was on the very edge of absolute dehydration now. And finally they came to, well, 3 holes in the ground. And Seal just leapt towards the first well, and Crow went, "No, what are you doing? That well's for the common people. A seal of your stature must not be seen drinking at that well." And Seal, he didn't even answer. He just went towards the next well. "No, what on earth are you thinking? Who do you think you are? That well's for the really, really important people. Think a bit many, many high and mighty things about yourself, don't you, Mr. Seal? Why don't you go for the 3rd well over there? That's the well for you." And Seal just plopped his head right in it, really submerged his head right in that well and started gulping up great gallons of water. And Crow, seeing his chance, just went right in the back, trying to peck right to his hide to pull all his guts out. And Seal just turned around and looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And Crow said, You just had a bit of dirt on your back. I was just pecking it off." And Seal went, okay, and went back to drinking again. And this time Crow did a right big mighty peck and pecked right through Seal's hide and pulled all his guts out and gobbled them all up. And Seal died right there and then, I'm sorry to say. And Crow feasted on that Seal's carcass, his first and only friend, for days and days and days and days and days. And he was delicious. Now, when that seal was all dried up and just a carcass, Crow got back in his canoe and started paddling. And after a while, he came to a village, and he turned himself back into human form, you know, a rich man's son, you know, finely dressed, wear a lovely jumper and a nice earring. And he came to a village, and then he started to put on a great big show, a great big story, and he was crying tears, and he started talking about his friend, the seal. They were best friends, and then he choked to death while we were camping, and he died. And all the members of this village, they took great pity on him. And just at that moment, Crow went and just belched up a great big chunk of seal meat. And the villagers went, "You're the one! You killed your friend and ate him! Get him! Get him!" And they leapt at Chulyen the Crow, but Crow, turned back into a crow and flew into the sky. And just as I said that, there were a flock of crows that just burst out of that tree line over there, so they're in this story. Crow flew away into the next part of this story, which I will tell next time. Thank you very much for watching this series of Trickster's tales about Crow. See you next time.